Hello, everyone. Good morning. We are going to kick off in about a minute or two. We're going to let everyone get in, get settled. Please, when you come in, make sure you're muted, and we'll kick off our self-funding Shark Tank in just a moment.
Okay. And we'll get started in just a moment. We're letting everybody just come in, get settled. Welcome.
All right, everyone. Good morning and welcome to our last and final self-funding Shark Tank. This is our third pitch in the self-funding Shark Tank series, and it has been such an amazing adventure and journey learning from some of the top CEOs in the country that are really growing their business and dedicated to learning more about ways to support their employees for better care and lower costs. So we are so excited to be here. For those of you that have joined us, we just do a little bit of housekeeping notes before we dive in. Please make sure you are muted. We have so many folks in the meeting, and there will be a time at the end of the session for a dedicated Q&A where you can ask any questions based on what you heard of Ethan, our self-funding expert today, and our CEO, John Ackerley. So that'll be the last 15 minutes of the session. And we're going to kick it off. That's about it. I know this isn't your first Zoom rodeo. We're so excited for you to be here. And I'm going to let Keith make introductions and welcome everyone. Keith.
Thank you, Megan. And for those that don't know me, my name is Keith Lemmer, the CEO of WellNet Healthcare. Thank you for joining our third and a final series of self-funding Shark Tank. And today we have the pleasure of doing our third and final round of, shall we say, practice pitching to a CEO who may not be familiar with alternative funding. We're also joined by Ethan Merck, WellNet's Vice President of Business Development, who will play the role of an assuming, let's call it a broker consultant. And he is going to share what it's like to actually communicate with a CEO on a firsthand pitch meeting. What are the questions to ask, the conversations to dive into, the things to pause on, and next steps and takeaway items. We are thrilled to have John Ackerley, CEO of Virtru. And Virtru is one of the leading privacy organizations in the nation. They've actually built a platform that empowers companies, just like WellNet and others, about 6,000 other companies, to control all of their data, but still have it encrypted, to still have it private, and still have it shareable and accessible anywhere that they are. John and his brother Will have birthed this company for the past several years, both coming from the technology side of the White House, from the policy perspective, as well as the NSA. John and Will have raised to date almost $80 million from the likes of Bessemer Ventures, from Soros Fund, Samsung, New Enterprise and Associates. And, these guys are doing it. They're getting it done. They've got about 150 employees based in Washington, D.C. And, like your customers, like your prospects, John is looking for ideas to enhance his culture, improve the benefits package. And so today will be a terrific Q&A and outlined as Megan has shared. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ethan Merck, and then he and John will kick it off. So thank you all very much, and we'll get started.
Great. Well, thanks, Keith. Thanks, Megan. John, first, thank you for making time today. I know you've got a lot going on. Turbulent time. So thank you for setting aside an hour to meet with us.
Sure, of course, my very sincere pleasure, and I look forward to the conversation.
Well, perfect. And to that extent, let me lay out a little bit of an outline for today. That way, for both for you and for the folks listening, of what we're going to hopefully get through today. I certainly would love just to have a little bit of introduction, learn a little bit more about you, your company, got a couple specific questions. I think your background is fascinating, so I'm curious about a couple of things. I'll introduce myself as well. I'd like to dig in then, since today is a benefits conversation, want to dig in a little bit about your benefits and learn what you're doing there, what's working, what's not. From there, I'd like to share our process, how we work, how that's unique, and some of the results that come from it. And then lastly, quite simply, I'd like to outline some next steps. I think with our conversation over the next 20 minutes, should be pretty clear. Either it'll be very clear that, hey, there's some mutual value for us to engage and to spend a little bit more time with our teams, or quite candidly, we might come out of the back of this thing and say, listen, it's either not the right fit or not the right time. So that would be what I'd like to accomplish over the next 20, 25 minutes. Is that okay? Or is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
So I think that would be, fantastic. And, from a Virtru background perspective, I would just note, my brother and I founded it back in 2012, and really we're a very mission-focused business, Ethan, and data privacy running through a lot of what I saw in the White House pre and post 9/11, both from a lack of collaboration, really causing some of the foundational issues that brought about 9/11, and then being in the room as the Patriot Act rolled through, and maybe seeing some of the cost associated with not being able to control data in a way that there was unfettered access to it. So seeing both sides of that coin, and my brother at the NSA also seeing a real challenge in seat, and actually being the brains of the operation, coming up with a really easy to use solution for the intelligence community to then share data, such that the CIA and the NSA and the NRO could all really collaborate easily and securely. And so the mission here was, let's get that pendulum back into balance so that the individual data owner and companies, we have 2,000 healthcare companies today, can be HIPAA compliant, share information. And so, when we started about, okay, how do we execute on this big, societal level issue, which is really about trust, getting the best team members on board, and what even back in 2012 was a really competitive environment to do this kind of thing well. You need best in the world engineers. You need great executives that know how to scale subscription SaaS businesses. And the mission around privacy really mattered, but also just investing a lot in the culture of the business to make sure that everyone can bring their best selves to their work every day, because there's always a lot to do. And certainly benefits comes up again and again. If you look at our Glassdoor, ratings, we're very proud of the 4.5 ratings, but hey, there are some comments about benefits at Virtru, and given all the things that we have to do as a business, sometimes just sticking with what's worked okay feels okay, but it doesn't feel great. So anyway, very happy to have this sales pitch.
Thanks. So I'm curious, you mentioned something there that was interesting to me. You said back in 2012, it was a super competitive environment. Coming forward to 2021, would you say now is a time where you're equally as competitive from a personnel perspective, potentially even more given what's going on, or is your industry space fairly stable in that way?
Oh, it is hyper competitive now. Given our scale and growth, we are able to compete for talent, but you see in the technology sector just the mass amount of dollars coming into the space, and that just changes the game sometimes. I think from a remote work perspective, and that we're flexible, from a remote work perspective, we have been since day one. We can compete, but it's harder. It is definitely harder.
Well, and so I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Sorry about that. Sorry. So you mentioned scale, you mentioned growth. So what are those initiatives this year? What's on the calendar for Q4, and then as you look forward over the next maybe 18, 24 months, what do those initiatives look like for you and for your organization?
Yeah. So obviously, just overall Virtru, you have a large amount of resource on on always maintaining and enhancing existing products like Microsoft, Google, et cetera, bringing in new products, to enhance the value that we create for our customers, and building out go-to-market globally, all that work. But underneath it, more pertinent to this conversation, it's really starting to think about the armature that supports all of those efforts. So we were locked in pretty early on to a few vendors, 2013, 2014, just before our Series A financing. It was through so then an advisor up in New York who did things where, from a payments perspective, there was a software service called Zuora, for example, and that was embedded deeply into how we do self-service and how we do a lot of things with the business. We have made the commitment now, though, to move on to another software platform. It takes engineering work, it takes time, but we're seeing the benefits, or we anticipate cost benefits, but also velocity benefits from that move. We have not tackled benefits yet, but the same advisor back in late 2013, 2014 introduced me to a very effective sales rep at TriNet. So we were like, okay, we have everything else to do, let's go. And we basically outsourced
easy button.
And this
Easy button, nailed it.
Easy button, crushed it. And and the upsell engine from that is just pretty extraordinary. So
it's aggressive, isn't it? On the PEO side of the world, it's nonstop, right?
Yep, it is. Absolutely. So,
so I appreciate, and that's a perfect transition. Because I would like to, and that's why we got together today, was talk a little bit more about benefits. If you don't mind, I can backtrack a little bit and just give you a 2-second blurb about me and about my organization, WellNet, and then we could dive back, kind of come full circle into TriNet, what's working, what's not, and move forward from there, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So as I mentioned, well, you met me, right, Ethan? I work for WellNet, which we're a local regional broker, and we work with employers, really mid-sized employers, so 100 to 1,500, and help take them down, the journey as we see it around purchasing healthcare. We don't see it as a plug and play. We don't see it as an easy button. We really try to figure out what's important to an employer, both strategically, where you are today and what your sophistication level is, and then meet you where you are, but also take you long-term into where you want to go, right? We understand that that's not a point in time, and that as you scale on a national basis, as you take in more revenues, as your headcount grows, your needs grow. And so that's what I would like to dig into. I've worked with, over the past, kind of the same timeline. You said 2013, Series A, 2012, you got started. I got started in this space right around healthcare reform. So a similar environment of government making a decision, and I saw it affecting the entire population. And I started as a very low level, kind of understanding fully insured. And then as I dug deeper and deeper, I saw really this challenge of how does a mid-sized employer deliver value and at the same time absorb costs, right? Where we're looking at an environment now where every year you have a decision of worse benefits for more money, right? It's a less bad renewal is what we see. And so how do we engage with our employer groups to help show them and educate them in a way that they're not stuck, that it isn't an is what it is scenario, or it isn't a reactive, where you can be very strategic and forward looking into the program of what you're doing, how you're delivering it. So that's what we can dig into a little bit, just a little bit more about me.
Yeah.
So about your program. So you mentioned you're with a PEO, and it was an easy button, right? And you've been with them for, I don't know, let's say 8-9 years.
Yep.
Where are you today with that? So certainly your company's changed a lot over that time. Have they been able to evolve with you in a way that you see being viable moving into the future?
I don't think that their NPS score is very high with our team, but have they evolved? I think they have evolved in terms of less direct customer support. We've had to push them to make sure that they provide more of that. Look, where the positives, right? You have out of the box insurance beyond just healthcare,
Sure.
Workers' comp, disability stuff, I mean, there's a lot out of the box, which is helpful. The cost per employee is high, and from a health insurance perspective, I think, they have a range of plans, so, 15 different plans
Right.
with an Aetna, Kaiser as well. No one's fully really pleased with any of those plans. I don't know how that would change in a WellNet scenario. I would love to unpack the cost benefit analysis, what the
course.
savings would be, but have they evolved with us? Not really. I mean, we're still kind of in the same box. And because we are rapidly growing, but we're not 10,000 employees. At this point, it's kind of the easy button has worked well enough.
Right. Well, I mean, I would imagine too, I mean, it's from a organizational initiative perspective, it's a heavy lift, right? Because it's a cost center versus a revenue center. And
Yeah.
so if it's not totally broken, is it worth the time investment of your people to dig in?
Yeah, look, I think it could be, right?
Yep.
If there's a quantified ROI, time boxed in terms of what it would take.
Right.
And then what is the playbook? If
Right.
you're CEO for everything else.
Well, that's so perfect. So let me, because I understand that there's in a transition away from a PEO, there's always that's how they get here, right? Which is, can I really unbundle in a meaningful way? What does it look like? What's the time investment? Is it worth it? So in my world, there's 5 components of a PEO. There's payroll, HR, 401k, workers' comp, and employee benefits.
Yeah.
Disability, I guess, if you want to add that on the benefit side. So payroll specific, fairly commoditized. Are you doing anything specific there that would be, kind of out of the norm, or is it pretty straightforward on the payroll side?
Very straightforward.
Okay. So that's pretty, and I think there's 1,001 payroll companies out there, and getting you LinkedIn and getting that lined up, not too bad. HR side, do you have internal HR personnel currently?
Yes.
Okay. So you're paying for an HR business partner on a monthly basis. Do you know if they're if they're engaging there on hourly or weekly basis?
I think they do. They engage more than I probably know about.
Okay.
Definitely not on a daily basis.
Okay.
A couple times a month, if I had to guess.
Yeah, and honestly, what I find a lot of times, and you might be the same, is that when you're initially getting out of the box and you need personnel files and you need all these things that are kind of standard, there's a lot of value there. But once you've evolved past that, kind of erodes a little bit. So there might be some work to dig in on how much engagement is there and what's really happening.
Yep.
So there's a little bit there. 401k. So, I know you have a lot of connections probably locally. Do you feel like your people are getting what they need from this like kind of stock investment portfolio, or do you think there's opportunity there to provide a better
I think the issue there is that we don't match.
Okay.
So I think that's probably more the issue than options.
Okay.
The investment side of it, but
Okay.
But no, that is a sticky wicket for us right now.
The matching part, not necessarily the delivery of the investment.
I just haven't heard that in terms of feedback. Everyone complains about our healthcare piece. I think the delivery of investment.
Okay.
I've not heard that so far.
Okay, and again, I just want to go through each piece to see really, where's the lift, right? It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity on the employee benefits. I just want to minimize or at least talk through each one of those other components. The workers' comp piece, your SIC code isn't, it's a no-brainer. When you move off of a PEO, you actually reset at a 1.0 on your workers' comp. And so you're not taking a hit there either. So those 4 pieces, we can make some introductions and talk through it. We might need to engage in HR, but are you hearing anything there that's a hard stop on any of those pieces?
No. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Perfect. All right. So then let's dive into the employee benefit side then. So you mentioned that people aren't super happy with it from your perspective. So give me a best case, give me blue sky scenario of what is, if you could design your program, what does it look like that it makes you excited or makes your employees, keeps them, gets them engaged, or maybe gets you to steal an employee from somewhere else that you didn't have otherwise?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you just look at our overall cost, it's, it feels expensive on on the employer side, I think it's something like $750,000 a year that the company pays.
Okay,
And then there's sort of this, obviously range of deductibles and all this stuff based on,
rep,
I mean, we kind of, in a way, we pay salaries and bonuses and equity comp higher than market to kind of compensate for what the employees, based on prior work experience, we recruit out of Amazon, sometimes out of Google, but all over the place. And it's like, man, I'm taking a hit on my healthcare coverage. It's sort of
Yep.
broad statement. So if we can enhance
Right.
coverage and lower cost,
right,
that might be worth it. Certainly plans with dependents. We don't have, we have a relatively young workforce, but over the years, people are graduating, having kids, families, those costs really get high.
right.
And maybe they're just surprised at the expense of having children. But I definitely hear,
Aren't we all?
yeah, I am.
Yeah,
So that, so I think that's the sort of general zeitgeist at Berkshire.
right. So it's how do you stay competitive?
But like
against
then from a
these
cost
guys?
perspective, if we were to like break everything up, being, real with me, does that mean we hire another HR resource to like, we don't have a dedicated benefits person yet.
No, and you don't need one at your size. Normally, you're looking at a couple hundred employees, and you're only like 150 right now, right? No, you don't need that. Quite candidly, with the right advisor in place, they're going to be doing the lion's share of the work for you anyway. Your HR team will be doing things like new hires, terminations, so adds term changes, as we call it, which is what they're doing anyway today. You might, again, with the right brokerage partner, you're gonna push the majority of that work off to them. That's what you're hiring them, us, me for, is to be your subject matter expert and to do the heavy lifting there. So with the right partner in place, which is what you're looking for, it's a partner, not a broker. You shouldn't need more overhead internally to manage that. In fact, really what it looks like is executive team looks at spend and looks at strategy, and HR is the delivery system around open enrollment, those kind of base things that you're doing today anyway.
Yep. So then how are you compensated based on, so then if you're going to work together, what's your benefit?
That's a great question. So brokers can be compensated a lot of different ways. The way that we like to do it is on a fixed fee per employee per month number. So we are directly compensated by the number of people that are enrolled in the plan. We don't get paid more or less on a commission basis, in essence, having misaligned incentives,
Right.
where if your cost goes up, we get paid more. We don't like that model. We like to be straightforward. We could even look at potentially a savings model where we would set, PEPY basis on what you're spending today. We would agree on what we think a target would be for the end of the year. And if we got there, then we might be able to come up with a, arrangement there around savings, just so that we're aligned and we're truly working in benefit.
Yep.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yep. And that's really where the market has gone, quite frankly. And honestly, if you watch the market starting the beginning of next year, the entire marketplace will have to disclose full compensation anyway.
Yep.
And so we're just ahead. We've been doing that for years and feel like we need to be in line for there to be true value delivered in our relationship beyond simply placing insurance, which I feel is a pretty transactional business around, most people buy on rate. That's the only thing that they've been taught to buy on. And our job is to educate you that there's, to your point, what's the time value, right? Where's the opportunity? So when we look at a plan, we're looking at really three areas. One is member experience and how can we engage them differently, create consumerism, and we can talk about that for a second. Number two is spend. So how much did you spend or will you spend this year? And what are the tools and resources that we can help you bring to bear to reduce that spend? Number three is trend, meaning what's your year over year increase and how can you manage that over time compared to market, right? Those are the three areas that we would engage in. It already sounds like spend, it's okay, but the reality, I would say whatever you spend is too much, right? We always want it to be, we always want it to be less.
Yeah.
and I kind of understand what's going on there. What about trend? What's been your year-over-year increase have you seen on a year-over-year basis?
I don't know, but it is up. So I should get back to you on that.
That's okay. That's okay.
Feels like a bigger nut every year.
It's never the right number, right? It's and
But
and
really
so
for me, it's or for Virtue, again, going back to culture,
yep.
and you probably hear this a lot in companies in the tech space. It's just critical, and there's a cost element, but how do we also get quality higher? So, and maybe that's the third piece. So, sure, I'd love to get 750 down, but I don't know. Is this Geico 15% or more, 15 minutes to get you 50% or more? Like, or I don't know about that, but I think, sure, like I definitely want to dig in there, but then maybe a little time on the quality side. Like, what additional options?
Yep. So let's go back to that, because I think it's a really good point. The reality is that we've been trained as buyers that it really should be transactional, that it's just a rate and it is what it is and you have no control over it. And there's certainly some components in there that I think it's important to understand, both from an overall cost perspective and what can be managed, but then from a quality perspective, what are the pieces in there that you can really dive in and affect the member experience, right? And so let me show you, I've got two pieces here. I just want to show you very, very briefly, just because I think from a visual perspective, it might be helpful. And just let me make sure that you can see my screen here. Can you see this now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So where you are today is on the left-hand side. You have 100% fixed cost, meaning your premium's your premium and you have no control. The reality is what you have down to the member side is you have a self-service environment where there's no consumer room, there's no understanding of cost and quality. And for you, you have no control over what's going on inside the spend. Fair?
Yep.
Okay. Where we live in the self-funded environment, meaning simply all self-funded means is that you have a certain level of fixed cost, which is much, much lower, and you have a variable cost at the top that you can manage on an ongoing basis. So a corollary would be, do you go to the gym? You have gym membership?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to get you there.
I've not gone to the gym in a while.
Well, no, okay, so this is my point. Okay, perfect. I wasn't gonna, listen, this is exactly the
we are getting real personal here. It's like, okay,
I know, well, we're gonna become, like I said in the beginning, we're either gonna be best friends by the end of this thing, or you're gonna kick me out, right? It's gonna be one or the other. So listen, over here, you have a gym membership. I'm out, I'm already gone. Listen, over here, you got a gym membership. You pay $100 a month, whether you go to the gym or not. It doesn't matter if you get healthier. It doesn't matter if you go once. It doesn't matter if you go every day. Okay. Over here, I'm going to give you access. Let's say this is the Y, right? It's an okay gym. It's a fine gym. Over here is going to be a really premium experience. It's $30 to get in. It's your $30 a month is your access fee. And then as you go, you're going to, let's say you're going to pay $10 every time you go to the gym, but you'll never pay more than that same $100 as you would on the other place, whether you go once or whether you go 30 times a month, excuse me, 30 times a week would be excessive. And over here, we're going to give you a personal trainer to give you the best possible workout that you're going to get, right? It's the same experience. It's the same outcome here, but you're going to have so much more control about what's going on in the experience. And then at the end of the day, what you drive forward is going to be completely different. That's really at its heart, the difference between fully insured and self-insured is sunk cost versus control.
Yep.
Okay. The other piece of that is, where does your money go? So as I showed you here, fixed cost compared to variable costs, let me show you how that really works on a per dollar basis, because I think this is something that the reality is
that the last slide to me, well framed up. It sounds too good to be true.
Really?
So you kind of lose.
So would it surprise you to know that 85% of all employers over 100 employees work in this environment, not this?
That would be
85% of employers live in this world.
Oh.
Now, the reality is that what happens is exactly what happened to you. So you are right where you're supposed to be, quite candidly, John. So you started your business 8 years ago, you started growing, you go, uh-oh, I got to solve for all these things. What's the easiest way I can solve for it? Oh, PEO, great, boom, I'm out, and I can go grow my business, and I can go do what I need to do. And the reality is now is that this solution is underperforming in what we've discussed, and we have to educate you and help get you to a position in the comfort level to at least explore what else is out there in the marketplace.
Yep.
Okay, and that's really what I want to simply express to you here, is that you have a fixed cost that's uncontrollable, delivering a minimized benefit, where over here you have much more control, visibility, and we can get you to where you want to go, which is being competitive against the Googles and the what have yous in the world. Fair?
Right on.
All right. I want to show you one other thing, and then we can talk about member experience a little bit, which is when I engage and I go spend this money, where does it go? And I think it's important because we want to understand what can we control when it comes to spend for me as the employer, as well as spend and experience for the employee. So the big guys, what's happening in the market is you're saying, listen, 80 cents on the dollar is going to claims. Claims are claims, you can't manage it. It is what it is. And you should be focused over here on your fixed costs and your broker fees and all that sort of stuff. And what we know to be the case is it's just absolutely not true. And when you dig in a little bit in these 4 areas, which is drugs, meaning and being unfortunately the highest growing portion of your spend. So 22 cents on the dollar is low. Most groups I'm seeing now are using 35, 40 cents, but you don't know where it's going, right? You don't know if you have specialty drugs, what's going on. Doctors, inpatient, meaning you stay overnight, and outpatient, meaning you go home, right?
Yep.
The 2 biggest areas, and again, as your population ages, outpatient services, so schedulable, knowable events, things like orthopedics to babies, right? Schedulable, knowable events over here. And where is my money being spent chronologically? Those 2, it's 60 cents on the dollar roughly. So the more you understand where is that, how is my care being used, the more I can manage it in both reducing spend and delivering programs to your employees that are meaningful to them. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
All right, perfect. So I just wanted to give you a couple of visuals there. I think sometimes it helps just to kind of place that in our minds. And the last piece then would be, how do we deliver that to the employees? You know, if we get out of the funding mechanism, blah, 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 blah. The reality is, how do we make the benefit feel right? You mentioned Net Promoter Score, right? So in our business, we track Net Promoter. And for the big guys, you know, the Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Anthem, Aetna, Net Promoter for everybody, it goes from 0 to 100 or from 0 to negative 100.
Right.
And, right? Any guess what the Blues, the Aetnas, the Anthem, any guess where they fall in the world of Net Promoter?
Oof. I mean, it's a leading question, but I'll just.
It is. I know it is.
Look, I would say, well, I don't know. I don't think it can be negative here. 10.
You know what? You're pretty close. You're not too far off. You know, where we find that it falls right in the 13 to 15 range on average. That's right where we fall.
Well, that's better than the cybersecurity industry where it's like -5.
Is it really? Oh my goodness. So what do you guys? Where do you guys fall?
68. We can do better, but
Nice. Well, so WellNet in our program that we look at, we do a little bit better, right? We do a little bit better. And so what does that look like? What we're looking to do is
actually
moving.
excellent.
I'm sorry, say again?
That's excellent. 82 is excellent.
You know, we're really proud of it.
I mean,
You know, and
70 and up is excellent.
well, listen, I think, you know Net Promoter more than most, and I think you probably understand what it takes to get there. It's not a small lift. And, you know, our engagement, it's really about 2 things. It's about being proactive versus reactive. So in our environment, you know, when you go and you need to find a doctor, you're going to do, in my world, it's friends, family, Facebook, or Google. Who do you know that you kind of like, that you trust in your circle to go get care? Is that a fair, I mean, do you do it that way?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to frame it up.
So in our world, we want to move you out of self-service and move you into full service, which is when you have a question, we want to be able to give you and your people a resource to get questions answered around. Heaven forbid you know cost, and if a doctor is any good, and if the doctor has actually done the things that you need to have done to you a couple of times before you go do it. So cost, quality, and access, excuse me, is what we're going to engage in right away with our folks, whether that be they know to call us, or that be we're doing research and we understand when they engage with us, it's something like an MRI might be a leading indicator to a larger, event, like a orthopedic event. We would do outreach to that member and say, hey, we saw this, and would you like some help?
Yeah.
And then when we engage, we're getting into things like, if you don't already have a place, what are you looking at? And did you know? So John, did you know that cost and quality can be different across 3 different facilities in Washington, D.C.? Would that be fair to understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to go in there.
Right. So if you had a hip replacement, so that's a DRG 470, which is fairly common, that cost could be anywhere from $60,000 to $8,000 all the way down to $20,000, depending on where you go. And the quality would be different across the board, across all 3. So
Get into that level of granularity, like I'm thinking of our HR lead, Conley, like, which he happened to be managing like individual, I mean, it's only 150 people, but like, how does that all, like, it's like this like starts feeling like exciting personalization, but a lot of friction for the team manager.
Well, yeah, so you don't want to avoid Big Brother, right? Which I think is really what we're talking about. The great news is that the advocates that we have working for us, they're the access point to the information.
Right.
So it's not HR's job to do this, John. It's not your job to do this. There's 2 doors, okay? If you think about it this way, door A is you go where you always went. It's going to cost what it always cost. If you don't want to engage, you don't have to. There's no friction. Your plan design stays the same for the most part, and you go on down the road, okay? Door B would be your spouse calls us and says, hey, I need to have a thing. Let's just stick with a hip replacement. And I need help finding a place. And so what we do here is then we're able to jump on and share information around cost, quality, access, quantity of procedures. So we have access to this level of granularity here, where what it allows us to do is understand and share, here's what you have going on, here's in your market, and here's what's available to you. Let us help you with, and by the way, as opposed to going to some place that's going to be 118,000, we can take you and get you over here that's only 12. And by the way, this place did 50 and this place did 190.
Yeah.
If you go here, your benefit allows for a $0 benefit, meaning its cost is 0. If you go here, it's going to be the same cost as it was today. Where would you like to go? But we're doing that lift on behalf of the plan, on behalf of the member.
So we have an excellent engineer, early 60s actually, based in New Hampshire.
Yep.
So he needs a hip replacement. Doesn't know what he's been, deep in the bowels coding for, for like days on end.
Right.
Who does he call to figure this? Like, what does he do? If we've moved on to you guys,
Yep.
Like what's the workflow?
There's a number on the back of the ID card, just like there is today. So if they call the
Like
number,
they would have guidance for him about what to do in New Hampshire.
Sure. You said New Hampshire, and I pulled this up. And this isn't our only resource. This is a resource, not the resource. We have a lot of different pieces. I legitimately just put New Hampshire in, and this is what comes up. So it's real-time information around access to these things. Then again, so they call us, our care team would engage and say, cost, quality, plan design, options. And then we go so far as we would actually do the scheduling of the procedure on behalf of your employee. We'll even follow up with the employee after the procedure and say, how'd it go? And there may be a situation, John, where we may look at New Hampshire and say, you know what? New Hampshire is not great for hip replacement. Actually, what we want to do is get you to Johns Hopkins over in Maryland, because they're the best. And by the way, it's a $25,000 cost for that versus $60,000 in New Hampshire. But because the plan is recognizing $35K difference, it's $0 for you, Mr. Employee, and they're going to fly you over with your spouse. They're going to put you up in a hotel. They're going to take care of the expense, and then they're going to fly you back. All that net to you, John, is $30,000 less than you'd pay otherwise. But to the employee, think about the impact that would have to that guy and to his wife.
Yeah.
That's the work that we do. That's what separates us from, the rest of the world in this space. It's that personalized. It's that meaningful. Because listen, we're a second generation privately held brokerage house, right?
Yeah.
How we engage and what we deliver, that's what it's all about. So listen, I apologize. I know we could probably go on and chat, and I appreciate it.
You definitely have my interest.
Well, listen, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have a follow-up. I'd like to collect a little bit more information so I can come back to you with some deeper recommendations and suggestions based on what you have going on and really, really dive in. So if you're comfortable with that, I'd love to maybe end it here, and we can follow up later and keep this moving forward, if that's okay.
That sounds great. So Shark Tank, thumbs up.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate that. And listen, at the end of the day, the job here for me is to show you a program to meet you where you are, right, in a crawl, walk, run concept, and be able to take you where you want to go over time versus making it feel too overwhelming for you. Okay.
Helpful.
Perfect. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. Your questions were great. And we'll wrap it up and open up to the floor for questions and feedback.
Actually, before we do that, and thank you, Ethan. Thank you, John. So real quick, we've got 18 minutes left. So John, without mincing words, tell me what you think may have worked, and tell me what you think may have needed to be improved from what you were hearing from Ethan.
I tend to be a pretty tough critic, but I will say that the way the conversation flowed was excellent in that he really, it felt like he was probing and actually seeking from the start to really understand the specific dynamics within Virtru. That was very helpful. I think the most interesting was sort of at the end, where it was an eye-opener for me, sort of the personalized attention that I would want to validate in the follow-up meeting, how it would really work for all of our team members. Because again, that is, that's how you change the game, and you get people like turning benefits from what's been a bit of a sore spot for us to a differentiator. So I think overall, extremely helpful. I think the gym reference was a little bit, that's just super tactical, but that was almost too good to be true. So I was feeling a little schmaltz on that one.
Okay.
So, but like, that's just me, because I'm like, wait, that's impossible. Like, yeah. So anyway, I felt overall though, very, very good.
And then any suggestions to enhance or improve if you were to give one of your friends a similar pitch? Would you have wanted him to get to the solution more quickly? Any other areas of suggestions?
Well, I think maybe if we weren't doing it in this forum, I would probably want to go there a little bit faster. Frankly, it was sort of 15 minutes of buildup as well, that we probably could cut back. But no, I think this was extremely professional, and I will think about additional tactical areas of improvement. I mean, I'm just curious, what is the hardest question that you get normally, where and you really have to think about how to kind of move past that objection?
That's a good question. So if I think about it like that, like most people think, and you asked a good question before, right? It sounds too good to be true, right? You're in a fully insured plan. You're considering going self-funding. There's savings of about $1 million for every 500 employees, or $200,000 for every 100, right? A lot of money at stake, right? What do I have to do that's different? And the answer is, right, nothing. And so it's, do what you've always done, right? Door A, as Ethan kind of referred to, and go to the doctors you want to go to, or door B, which is pick up the phone, call the advocacy, call the concierge, and find out who's got higher quality, lower cost. And so it's very simple, right? When you do that as an employee, right, you can get your deductible waived. And so the biggest really response to answer your question is, why isn't everybody else doing this, right? Like, what am I missing? And the thing is, right, it's very comfortable to be swaddled up in a fully insured environment, right? You sit back after 11 months, you get your renewal, and then same thing happens again. You get a 10, 15, 25% increase. But the alternative, right, is to flip it on its head to say, all right, how do I get inside? How do I use the data like we use for our business and our customers, right? And all the encrypted information. How do I find out what's wrong with the plan to improve the plan? And when you have that information, right, you basically have blown the doors off, whether it's what TriNet or TriNet's carrier is offering to your company. And that's where most companies, i.e. the large national carriers, don't want you to know, or the traditional brokers, right? Like, they like to take that easy, fully insured button. But at the end of the day, it's really about, how do I dig in? How do I understand? How do I go on this journey that is at my own pace, based on my company and my culture?
Fantastic. Very helpful. That's great.
So, Ethan, are there any questions that you feel John may have been that you would like to have seen him ask?
No, I think, this is not only in this environment, but in a natural setting, it's not uncommon that we would have scheduled 20 minutes or 30 minutes and we would have gone an hour and a half. I mean, it's just that's when someone's engaged at this level, especially the executive level, you want to dive in and dig in. And so I think, this is fairly stock for what I hear on a daily basis. And the questions were, I think, spot on. I don't know that there was a miss from his end around what didn't I ask, sort of thing.
Sure.
We would have gotten there eventually.
So there's a question right here from Chrissy Benton. Chrissy, thanks for the question. It's to John. It says, everybody complains about the cost, the confusion, the poor quality, healthcare. John, why do you think that more CEOs and CFOs don't get involved in their group health plan to find out about alternative solutions?
Yeah, look, I think it's a fantastic question. And this was very helpful for me as well going through this exercise. But I think look, we're all so busy and we're not getting board pressure to necessarily optimize. I mean, it's a big line item. It's not sort of a board level conversation oftentimes, particularly for growth companies. So I'm like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I've got a benefits issue. We can handle it next year. Why deal with it now? And then probably from a team perspective, oftentimes, everyone's so busy. It's like, oh, we have to really start thinking this through. And so it's like we have a lot of, opportunities in front of us. It's like, is this the opportunity we want to seize at the moment? So it's always on the list. Sometimes it's not at the top. That's part of the challenge.
By the way, great answer. And so I'm going to combine two other questions that come here, which is, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? But that's the thing. Healthcare is broken, right?
Yeah.
Health insurance costs about $20,000 for a family of four plus deductibles. That's like you giving your employees a brand new car every single year and then throwing it away at the end of the year and starting over, right? And so while you all are definitely in a more cash-rich position than most organizations, the lack of quality, the lack of data, and the lack of—
Well, I think that's right on. And to the other question I see, it's in terms of getting my attention, I think the game changer, well, there's obviously cost. The game changer is that employee experience and competing in the national and global marketplace for talent. And this absolutely comes up in all of our recruiting efforts. And if we can make the pitch to our recruiting team as well, like this becomes an asset that we can talk about, then that will get my attention.
Yeah, and by the way, that is really how the benefit plan is used in most of the organizations we work with, because right, most people don't have $1,000 in the bank, right? So how are they going to pay their deductible of $1,500 or $2,500? And so if you can say to them, hey, listen, yeah, you know what? If you want to go to the sports doctor who works at the Wizards, to see your knee, right, you can do that. But if you wind up needing a knee surgery, right, that's going to cost $80,000 and you're going to have to pay a $2,500 deductible. Or you know what? You could pick up the phone and you could call Wellnet's Advocates and they could actually find you another high quality knee surgeon at a lower cost that may be $20,000, right, saving you $60,000. And because the employee took the time, right, picked up the phone, called the advocate, they saved you 60, you decided to waive that deductible, right? So it's a win-win for you, the employee, their family, and certainly the physicians.
Very well said.
It's meeting people where they are, really. Let's see if there are other questions.
I think Byron had a good point too, right? Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it says the missed opportunity was to say if savings projections do materialize, a 401k match may be feasible.
Yep, right on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other questions from the audience? And we have, I see we've got about 65 people on here or so right now. Yeah, Megan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, there is a question. Anthony asked, let me pull it up really quickly. I think this is for John. What gets your attention? In other words, how would someone set an appointment with you?
So I think I just answered that. It's talking about using this as a competitive a differentiator to really drive employee engagement as well as a tool to assist in our recruiting efforts.
Great.
And I love Byron's, and if we can prove this out, getting that match in place would be a big one.
So John, tell me this, like what keeps you up at night right now as it relates to the business?
Oh my God. I think every entrepreneur, it's a whole bunch. Look, I think a lot of it is people related, given the scope of the opportunity that we're addressing, retaining talent, making sure that there are career paths for all of our best people. And then, what keeps me up at night is, just that, because in order to compete, we just need a world-class team. We both cooperate and also compete with Microsoft, Amazon, Google, a bunch of very large players. So while we don't have, while we have, a nano of the scale from an employee standpoint, I think the quality of our team is right up there, if not higher, and that enables us to be nimble and compete well. But that means we need to have a world-class team, or else we could be gobbled up.
Excellent. That's awesome. So there's a question coming in from Dylan. It's to Ethan. It says, you said that an employer with 150 employees does not need a dedicated benefits professional in addition to HR. What number of employees justifies such a position? Ethan, do you want to elaborate, or you want me to touch on?
Sure. And so let me clarify a little bit, because I believe that John does have an HR professional in place today. And I would see in that 100, right at that 100 marker to 150 is really where I see a transition from finance owning HR to HR having a seat at the table. And I think what we were talking about, what John asked me was specifically, would he need to add an additional HR seat in order to manage the benefit? And I typically wouldn't see that until you're maybe 400 or 500 people, maybe even close to 750, where you would actually need someone to manage a subset inside of human resources. So thanks for the question, and allowing me to give you a little bit of clarity there.
Terrific. And I'd say this, right? We're going to wrap up a couple minutes early. We'll give John 7 minutes of his time back. And ultimately, if you look at the benefits like this, right? Healthcare costs are an unaffordable mess. They are absolutely absurd. They are bankrupting companies. They are bankrupting families, right? John happens to run an incredibly successful organization, but for those brokers and advisors that are on the phone right now, right? Every business right now is looking for cash preservation. They're looking for expense reduction. And the way to really do that is getting out of the carrier-based plans, right? Fully insured or self-funded ASO offerings, and going to an opt-out strategy, right? An independent third-party administrator that's got access to all the same bells and whistles, but a lot more technology, a lot more engagement and ability to lift under the hood to find out what's driving the cost, where the opportunities to reduce those costs are, and then how do we do that on a continuous, repeatable basis so it becomes yours and your customers' own self-funded journey. And that's really what Ethan was wrapping up with before, kind of that crawl, walk, run approach, right? Everybody goes at their own pace, but the desire is, right, to save as much money as quickly as possible. But most companies are not ready to go to a reference-based pricing plan. So when you have the ability to work with an entrepreneurial organization and ride shotgun with them, right, there's great things you can do as an advisor, right? You can retain your business and you can go out and get new broker records, right? John Ackerley is even willing, if you get the right message, to answer your phone, right? If you've got the money, the ROI, and the culture and the enhancement, right? So take those things, use them as talking points, and we appreciate everyone joining us today. And John, thank you very much for this unvarnished and genuine conversation on
Oh, it was a real pleasure, truly.
plans.
And it is a very important topic. So appreciate this. And I feel a lot smarter on this issue. And then Ethan, I might just give you a call in a few minutes to get that
Please,
follow.
I'm here. I'm ready and waiting.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you all. Take care.
Bye-bye.